Hey everyone, John Hunter here, slingshotfutures.com. Welcome to the daily futures and crypto market outlook for tomorrow's trading. That's going to be for the 28th of the month. This is where we formulate an attack plan for tomorrow's trading with what the market, at least the information that the market is giving us to work with today. Now, before we jump into all the charts and all of that fun stuff, make sure to swing on over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. From there, you're going to be able to sign your email up in our email list so you'll be notified every time one of these videos comes out. Along with that, in the email itself, we go over different stocks and different currencies and different forex. Basically, if it moves, it's going to show up there at some point. And it's a great way to kind of stay abreast of what's going on. So make sure to sign up for that newsletter if you haven't done so already. Along with that, make sure to click on the live trade room subscription and trial info. From there, you can sign up for a 3-day trial in the live trade room. You can sit down with us for a couple days, see what we're all about. You can log into the live trade room with us, see the trades, see the markets that we're looking at. It's really a good experience to get a feel for how everything works and just kind of what you're getting yourself into, for lack of better words. So a great way to check that out, of course, along with everything else. Now, taking a look at the overall market movers, we didn't have a ton of movement. Well, I can't say we didn't have a ton of movement. We had a lot of good movement, but for the most part, a lot of that movement didn't really accomplish a whole lot. They gave a lot back towards the end of the day there. So on the euro, we had a really nice drive lower for most of the morning session until we got towards around 9 or 10 o'clock, and then we caught a pretty big reversal. Now, the reversal to the upside has found a lot of selling pressure, and that comes to a couple different things. We have the previous swing highs, or in this case swing lows, turning into swing highs for that wedge bottom, acting as a major level of resistance. Not only did they respect it very aggressively on that attempted blow-off, but all of the subsequent highs after that also holding the inside of that wedge. So definitely something that we want to keep our eyes on as the market continues. And now we're forming a little bit of a wedge here on top of everything else. So the major area of resistance seems to be between 18,190 down to 18,100. A level of support at 18,000, definitely something that we want to keep our eyes on as well. It's not a big surprise that those big round numbers tend to kind of magnetize the market a little bit, and the market ends up getting stuck around there. So as long as we're around that 18,000, chances are we're going to have a little bit of a hard time. Now, if we can start breaking lower, I would be looking for a retrace back up to 18,000 because, again, those levels do have a gravity to them. But then shove the market back down towards the bottom, the next area of major support at 17,835. From there, we have monthly support underneath us at 17,805, and because we are nearing the end of the month, those monthly levels do become big levels that we need to keep our eyes on. So 17,805 is that area, and that is something that we need to keep in mind as we go into tomorrow's trading. Overall, I am still bearish on the euro. I'm looking for selling pressure, but I would like to see either a retest of this selling zone from earlier that the market held so aggressively, or looking for a breakdown into a retrace and then shove the market lower from there. Over on the gold market, gold is pushing down once again. Major level of support underneath us at 85.8, which we are breaking underneath right now. This is also the wedge bottom break, so we do have a lot of bearish sentiments stepping up to the plate here for gold. And that's not a big surprise. We've been bearish for most of the day. Arguably, there was a little bit of a blow-off into a range, another big blow-off. They gave quite a bit of it back, but they did end up finally driving down. If you were hanging out with us in the live trade room today, this little area right inside here was a little bit of a train wreck, and it was definitely tough to watch while we were waiting for some potential trade setups inside there. But going into the lunchtime session, we did have a correction back up into major support. Right? Major support turning into major resistance, and now we are forming a falling wedge. We just cycled off of the highs of the wedge. We're breaking through the lows of the wedge. Everything is looking really good for continuation to the downside. What I would really like to see here is one more pop back up, retest that earlier area of support at 85.8, use that as resistance so that we can then shove the market back down once again. All's well on gold, at least on the sell side. We just need to wait for a little bit of a retrace so we can jump in at a slightly better price. On crude oil, this is one of those markets that had a lot of movement today. Now, granted, it was inventory day, but it had a lot of movement without much accomplished. And that does happen from time to time where really nothing, at the end of the day, nothing really happened. We have the open here, and we're going to be closing right around here. Bunch of wick on the highs, bunch of wick on the lows. Just not a very good-looking daily candle. That doesn't necessarily mean to stay away from crude, but what it does tell us is that they are in a balance. So when it's in a balance, we want to zoom out and look for the bigger trend. Who owns the market in in the bigger picture, and that would be the buyers right now. So because of that trend in place of the buy side, I would much rather look for the market to push down to the lows and find some buying opportunities, 51.68 and lower, to push the market back up again from there. Now, if we do look backward a little bit again, we have the previous low of day at 51.43, and that might be a beautiful area if we can get a dip down there to find some buying pressure back up. But overall, we're in a range right now. We're pretty much right in the middle of that range. It's buy low, sell high, and right now we're not anywhere that is, well, not anywhere that looks good. So we're waiting, and preferably for some cheaper prices to buy in. And then over on the S&P, we have a really nice bull wedge working its way higher, just an absolutely gorgeous wedge. The overall movement that we're getting at the moment, we're cycling off the top. Now, again, we've been talking about this area for quite some time, 2,500. We don't want to lose sight of that, but we are potentially, right, potentially breaking away from that. Now, does that mean that we're not going to come back? No. The way that gold, or I was typing in gold, the way that the S&P tends to operate is very cyclical, and it's a very efficient market. And if there are enough orders waiting back at 2,500 for a retest, you better believe that it's going to come back and retest. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, but we are making some really good progress to the upside. And hopefully we can start maybe a little bit of a pullback and then continue on our merry way to the upside. Everything is still looking really strong to the upside on the S&P, but this is a fairly decent bear turn. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want to buy, I do, but we need to be a little bit careful. Buying too early to the party usually means that you're going to have to sit through a lot of chop and a lot of whip, rather than waiting for the conservative entry a little bit later, and that may just be the best approach. For right now, though, we are waiting for a little bit more of a pullback, probably down to 2503 to 2502, and at that point, it's only a couple points away from retesting 2500. So in reality, looking for another retest at 2500 from there, bouncing back up towards those highs to complete the job, back up to record tops again. So that's going to be the outlook for the futures markets. Now, in terms of the news for tomorrow, we don't have nearly as many things going on, but we do have a couple. Tomorrow morning, out of the UK at 4:15, we have the Bank of England Governor Carney speaking. At 8:30 tomorrow morning in the U.S. session, we have the GDP quarter over quarter for quarter two. That's forecasted at 3.0%. That is the same as the previous at 3.0% as well. So in terms of the news, it's a little bit on the light side, but we do have a couple things going on to hopefully keep the markets moving at least a little bit. Now, on the crypto side of things, we have a lot of stuff going on for the cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin breaking out to the upside, continuation to the upside, everything very, very strong here. The one thing that's really standing out here for Bitcoin is the fact that we seem to be stuck up here. Notice how we just we caught a really big rally up and then just ran into a brick wall. A lot of times that type of formation happens when you have a big seller that is sitting on the highs. Maybe that's a buyer that's taking profit. It could be any number of reasons why there'd be a seller there, but it does look like we're running into a little bit of a brick wall. And likely when that type of scenario happens, you expect a pullback, and then the market to retest it later. Now, later might be in an hour, later might be next week. It all depends on what the market wants to do. And again, I don't think Bitcoin is out of the woods until we start breaking above 4,200, going on 4,300, but we are definitely making some really good progress to the upside. The overall momentum, we are a little overbought. We've done a little too much on the top side, and with a big seller apparently stacking up on the highs, I would really like to see a little bit of a pullback. That could be a pullback down to around 4,120, or even better would be a retest of 4,000. We also have those previous swing highs coming into play that could give us plenty of reason to buy in on the next dip lower. So moving on over to Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash also in a nice bull trend to the upside here. Breaking back above, the buyers did pick up ahead of the channel lows. They never actually made it down to the channel low, showing that they are a little bit more on the aggressive side, but well, we've got a little bit of work cut out for us here on good old Bitcoin Cash. We need a little more upside. Now, the reason I say that, primarily just due to the fact that we're still kind of stuck in the same area. If we zoom out a little bit here, this same zone, right, if we draw across these current highs right now, notice something that kind of stands out a little bit? Yeah, major highs, major lows, major lows, major highs. We need to get away from this $460 area in order to really start breaking out to the upside. If we can start getting above, maybe towards 480, maybe a little bit higher, then we have a chance at a little more continuation to the upside. Now, that's not saying that all hope is gone, right? It's not like we're completely giving up on BCC, but I think right now we need a little bit more lift to kind of prove to the majority of buyers that it's here to stay, and getting above that big 460 area that we're stuck on top of right now is going to be a big part of that for continuation to the upside. So at the moment, Bitcoin Cash, I think, is on a holding pattern. Over on Ethereum, phenomenal breakout to the upside on Ethereum. We're starting to break back above 300. We're kind of in the same situation that we were just talking about on Bitcoin Cash, where if we look backward a little bit here, this major area of resistance around 280 to 290, that we need to leave this behind. They're making a really good attempt at that, and that's really what we want to see. So overall, looking for some really good continuation of the upside. I would love to see another pullback, maybe towards, a retest of 300, and then look for continuation from there back on up towards the highs. We are breaking out of the top of the wedge, and a lot of times we have a bull angled wedge, and we're breaking out of the highs. The market may see that as unsustainable movement. It's not very frequent those stick around. So because that is the case, we may end up having to wait for a little bit of a pullback first, buy into that low, and then shove the market higher. But overall, Ethereum is still looking pretty good to the upside. Litecoin breaking out as well, pushing towards $60. Again, this seems to be kind of the same scenario across the board. We're running into that big area of resistance around 57 to 58 that we need to break through. If Litecoin is going to continue and rally back up to the $100 mark again, we're going to need to break above this, probably breach 60s into 61 or 62, then pull back and buy it from there. Where we stand right now, this is a major level of resistance that the buyers are going to have to struggle through, and it could take a while before that actually happens. So knowing that we are in a little bit of an area of congestion, for lack of better words, chances are we have a bull channel. We're breaking the top of that. It would look a lot better if we could get a pullback towards around 51 or 50 for the continuation bounce. At least that way you're buying in a cheaper, the cheaper end of the spectrum, looking for continuation of the upside from there. Just makes life a lot easier for Litecoin. So again, Litecoin, I think we're in a holding pattern. NEO with a beautiful rally to the upside. Everything is looking really, really good on NEO. Just a monster today in terms of overall movement. Now, the way that things are really kind of setting up here on NEO, we have obviously had a big move up. We've gotten the $32 target objective area. They even pushed all the way up into 34, almost 35, and we're starting to pull back. The major area of interest that I'm looking at is a combination of a couple things. You have the previous swing high. You also have the 50%, or rather 38.2% fib lining up in the middle of there. And by the time the market pulls back, we'll likely have the moving averages starting to come into play as well. And that's going to be around the $28 mark. So 27 to 28 seems to be a pretty good buying range if they do want to pull back a little bit to buy into the dip and then push the market back up towards those highs again. And maybe from there we can finish off the $40 level next on the table. Over on gas, everything is looking nice on gas here as well. They didn't follow along with that big rally to the upside on NEO, and that leads me to believe that gas may be holding off for just a little bit. Some sellers may be trying to sell into the highs. Buyers may be not really convicted to the upside yet. So really what I'm looking for on gas is either a short-term buy right now to push the market higher, or a little bit of a dip lower into the buying area at around 0.0056 or so to really find a bottom and then shove the market up from there. Everything is still looking really, really strong, and with NEO making such a strong rally to the upside, it makes a lot of sense that gas will follow along, and it hasn't yet, and that means that we may be given the opportunity around here to get some cheaper prices before the train leaves the station. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes on gas. And then finally, ADX, good old ADX, is forming a just monster rally to the upside. The overall upswing that we're forming right now on ADX is extreme to say the least. They're pushing into almost a full dollar, right? A full dollar is where we almost pushed into. Now, the last time we were above that full dollar mark was back in early September, at around the 9th or so, and from there, I mean, the last time from there, we were above it for quite a while. Now, looking at that dollar mark, that is going to play a big level, and we're sitting right on top of it. Major support, major resistance, and we are now back there again. So this is the area that it's going to be do or die for the buyers. Either they're going to smash through it right now and not look back, or more likely scenario, we hit $1 or fade just shy of it like we are right now, back into an area of support like 0.78 cents, 79 cents, and then shove the market back up from there. Overall, though, I am definitely eyeballing ADX. It looks like a beautiful potential setup to the upside, but that dollar level has me a little bit nervous buying way up here. I would either rather see a pullback or a shove through that dollar mark, probably up to around $1.25, and then buy the subsequent pullback afterward. So that's going to be the overall outlook. Everything is looking pretty good. We're getting some pretty good movement lately. Fingers crossed. Knock on some wood. Don't jinx anything. But fingers crossed this continues, and we can start looking at winding up the week with some good price action as well. So that's going to do it for the outlook. As always, if you have any questions about it, you can send me an email. But any market that you approach, regardless of the market, whether it's futures, forex, cryptos, options, you name it, always, always, always make a plan. Trade the plan, follow those rules, and you'll be A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.